The meeting will come to order. Today is Monday, July 24th, 2023, and the time is 6 p.m. Chair asks, out of respect to everyone, please silence all electronic devices. If you have anything for board members, please hand them to Mrs. Moret, our executive assistant. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Board members, the first item on our agenda, adoption of the orders of the day. Board members, are there any items you wish to move from consent to action?
Yes.
Ms. Rosario?
Let me get there. 6E.
And will you tell me the topic name, please?
Sure. That's the request to set a public hearing date of 8/28/23 for revised policies 7250 and new policies, mascot, district strategic plan, and legislative priority.
Thank you.
Another one is 6F, request to set public hearing date of 8/28/23 for revised policy 8330, student records and student directory revisions.
Thank you very much.
Next one, 7D, approval of media center book orders for school year 2023-2024.
All right.
And then I have two more. 10C, approval of 2023-2024 mental health allocation plan.
All righty.
And 11C, approval of 2023-2024 homeschool dual enrollment articulation agreement with Treasure Coast Technical College.
All right, thank you very much. Board members, any other?
Yes.
Yes.
Discussion item, please add. TAN concern, that's what we'll call it,
TAN concern.
and not as in tanning, like tanning bed.
Tax anticipation notice, thank you. Any other board member? Mr. Barefoot, Dr. Posca? Good. Okay, let me read those back just to make sure I'm okay. I'll probably just read the numbers. 6E, 6F, 7D, 10C, 11C, all by Ms. Rosario, and then discussion, the TAN concern by Ms. Berenborg. Okay, the chair now calls for a proper motion to adopt the orders of the day.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Ms. Rosario makes a motion for the orders of the day.
As amended,
As amended.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ms. Berenborg. All in favor, please state aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you very much, board members. Next, we have the superintendent's report, and we have some presentations and some recognition and some good stuff. Dr. Moore, the floor is yours.
All right, the best part of the day, yes, Madam Chair. In order to have top-performing schools, you need world-class educational leaders, and ladies and gentlemen, this room is filled with world-class educational leaders, so we are going to introduce our new principals and assistant principals. Some of them probably don't feel new anymore, even though they've only been on a job for a week. But we are so excited for the crew that we have recruited and looking forward to great things based on their leadership. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Maddock for the presentation.
Good evening, and like Dr. Moore said, we are introducing our new and newly promoted principals and APs tonight. So when I call your name, if you'd please come to the front so we could take a group picture at the end. First, Dustin Wood, new AP at Sebastian River Middle School. Lisa Bailey, new AP at Sebastian River Middle School. Akila Rhodes, new AP at Gifford Middle School. DeMarcus Harris, new AP at Storm Grove Middle School. Joanna Rue, new AP at Treasure Coast Elementary. Josephine Willems, new AP at Sebastian River High School. Jennifer Lomascolo, new AP at Rosewood. Dr. Tintello, new AP at Glendale Elementary School. Natalie Corsonico, new AP at Fellsmere Elementary School. Jennifer Justice, new principal at Pelican Island Elementary. Kim Rahal, new principal at Indian River Academy. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Jeremy Keene, new principal at Treasure Coast Elementary. Okay, congratulations.
Once again, congratulations to our newly appointed principals and assistant principals. Welcome to our family, because that's exactly what we are. We are a family, and we're going to provide our students of our community with world-class education. So thank you, and congratulations once again.
Next, we have a very important presentation. We have our Florida Prepaid Scholarship winner, Ms. Kayla Ozowski. If you'd please come up to the podium. Let me tell you a little bit about Kayla. So Kayla wrote an essay about failures that lead to success, and she was one of probably about 25 essays that were submitted to our committee, and she was chosen as the winner out of all of those essays. She will be receiving a 2-year scholarship from Florida Prepaid. She's entering 12th grade at Vero Beach High School and has a weighted 4.51 GPA. And she said right now she's undecided about college, but I'm sure that she has every opportunity to go just about wherever she wants, and the scholarship will help her out. So congratulations. We have a certificate here for her tonight. And if we can get a picture up at the front, we'll call family up. Go right ahead. Okay, ready? 1, 2, and 3. All right, congratulations, Kayla.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's for presentation.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to everyone. Job well done. All right, the next part of our agenda is citizen input, and I'm...
Superintendent's presentation.
Oh. I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Okay.
You good?
No, I have the superintendent's presentation.
Okay, that's why I was asking. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Moore,
I'm-
thank you.
I'm sorry. So our next presentation is an update, and we wanted to share some of the outcomes from last school year. As you know, the state released them just as we went into the summer. So this is an opportunity for us to continue to inform our community of the progress that we have had over the last several years. So I will quickly go through each of the different areas in which the state releases information or outcomes to the state of Florida. and share our result in comparison to the state, as well as our neighboring communities. So when you look at this first slide, just to acclimate yourself, all of the slides are in fact the same. The first looks at our student that are scoring 3 or above, where it says achievement. This is grades 3 through 10, released by the state in this particular category. And as you can see, we are 2 percentage points in students scoring 3 or above the state. As you know, with the progress monitoring system in ELA and math, that is also a new way of releasing information. And you look here from PM1 to PM3, we were able to move from 32 to 52, which is a 20% increase over the course of the year, once again outperforming the state. When you look at our state ranking, I use 18-19. That is the year before I got here. It's also the last regular year that was not impacted by the pandemic. And you can see the school system in that course of time went from a state ranking of 31 of 67 to 19, which is a 12 state ranking improvement. And then you're comparing to our surrounding counties. Brevard is at 11, Martin at 22, Okeechobee 58, and 44. Now, what's not on here, if you're able to compare where were those counties in 18-19, they're all basically, and this will be true in all of the remaining slides, in about the same place, but yet significant improvement in grades 3 through 10 in LA and ELA. So significant improvement in terms of what we're doing. This is the science of reading at work. This is our new curriculum at work, and this is teachers and leaders at work producing a percent above the state. Now, we know in our community we are hyper-focused in on students scoring 3 or above in 3rd grade. And when you look at us in comparison to the state, we're 10 percentage points above the state. Over the course of the year, the state only grew 28 percentage points from PM1 to PM3, where we grew 40 percentage points. If you look at our state ranking now, we are within the top 10. We're number 7 in the state for all 67 districts. We were 31. And we are the top performing district in grade 3 on the Treasure Coast. Heck, why not throw in the Space Coast as well? And Okeechobee, we are outperforming all of them. So significant results in 3rd grade. Now, when we jump into math, once again, we are above the state average by 4 percentage points. Our rate of growth from PM1 to PM3, 51 percentage points, where the state was only able to realize 42 percentage points. And an improvement of state ranking from 36 to 15, knocking on the door to be in that top 10, which is our goal. And once again, on Treasure Coast, top performing district 3 and above, and we're throwing Brevard in there as well. So significant improvement in grades 3-8 math under what was a new standard. Once again, new curriculum, new interventions in place, and we're able to identify such an absolutely outstanding outcome. In looking at algebra, which is 8th grade students in algebra as well as 9th graders in algebra, once again above the state average at 55. If you look at our growth, we went from 45 to 55. Now we're not looking at PM1 to PM3. This is the same assessment that was provided last year to this year, so a 10% improvement over the course of 1 year. That is significant, where the state only realized a 4% improvement. A state ranking from 32 to 24, from 18-19 to 23-24. And then we're outperformed Brevard. Martin is only 3 in front of us, Okeechobee 49, and St. Lucie 60. So significant improvement in algebra as well. When you look at geometry, once again, outperforming the state, although it be only 1 percentage point. We realized a 13% improvement from last year to this year. That is significant. The state, 0. Our state ranking moved from 40 to 29, so we still have improvements to do. But when you look at us in comparison to our counterparts, the same is Broward, Martin only 4 above us, significantly outperforming Okeechobee and St. Lucie. Now looking at science, 5th grade, significantly outperforming the state at 59% in comparison to 51. A 9% improvement in 1 year. Once again, that is significant. The state actually only improved 3. We improved 9 percentage points. And here we are again in the top 10, where in 18-19 we were 35 in the state. So we are number 1 in this category as well in 5th grade science. 8th grade science outperforming the state by 4 percentage points at 51. Last year to this year, we maintained where the state actually went down a percentage point. So even though we maintained, the state went down. A state ranking from 38 to 13. So we are knocking at the door of the top 10. And once again, in comparison to other counties, Martin is tied with us. But they did not experience that rate of improvement in comparison to 18-19. So a improvement of 25 state rankings, once again, is significant. Now you're looking at biology EOC. The state performed at 63. We're 7 percentage points above that, which is 70%. We increased 15 percentage points from 55 to 70 in one school year. Absolutely significant. We went from 46th state ranking to 12th state ranking. Once again, knocking on the door to be in the top 10 and then outperforming all other surrounding counties. So significant improvement in that area as well. And then civics EOC, we outperformed the state by 1 percentage point. We were able to maintain our 67%, where the state actually went down 3 percentage points. Even maintaining, we were able to improve our state ranking from 41 to 30. Still work to do in EOC civics in comparison to some of our surrounding counties, but we're confident we will continue to see that result. U.S. history, once again, outperforming the state, 65% of our students scoring 3 or above. The state only was able to realize 62. That is a 5 percentage improvement from last school year, where the state actually went down 3 percentage points. It's an improvement of state rankings from 18-19 from 46 to 20. And then in comparison to our surrounding counties, the only one that's outperforming us is Martin, and that's only by 2 ranked positions. So once again, significant improvement. The fact of the matter is, this is the first time in the district's history in each and every single one of those categories the state releases, we outperformed the state. When I came into the school system during the interview process, I said that every single school in this district should be an A. And that statement continues to be the truth. Now, we don't know what district grades are going to be because the state is going to reestablish new cut scores based on the new exams. But if you're able to apply the same results or the same criteria that's in place now, 85% of our schools would be an A or a B. The district would, in fact, be an A. So we'll wait and see what the results will be, but no matter how you cut or slice this data, it is a validation that our teachers are working hard, our support staff are working hard, they've bought into a way of work that produces results. We all should celebrate the impact collectively that we're having on our community. There's still, even with this data that we've been able to produce, there's still significant opportunities to reflect, to evaluate, to learn, and improve. But this is a really, really positive outcome for our school district. Very, very happy of these outcomes and looking forward to coming back at the end of next year and producing more areas of our children performing as one of the top 10 school districts in the state of Florida. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Congratulations. I know as the board, we reviewed these a couple times, and congratulations to our teachers, to our administrators, to our support staff, to our district staff. It really does take a team to do this, and I know we're just going to keep moving forward, so thank you very much. All right, now we come to citizen input, and I will read the guidelines for citizen input. Each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. Person will be recognized in the order in which the requests were received. The time shall start when the speaker is at the podium, and the school board attorney will be official timekeeper. As you will see, the time clock is visible to your left on the dais. You will hear a beep at the end of your 3 minutes. A person may speak for up to 3 minutes at the beginning of a business meeting during citizen input as indicated on the order of the business, and for up to 3 minutes to each action agenda item during the action agenda and each board member discussion item as indicated on the order of business. If a consent item is moved to an action item, when you come up to the podium, you may speak at that time or defer to speak during the presentation of the action item. People may only speak once about any given item. The time period may be extended by the presiding officer. Only the individual submitting a speaker's form is allowed to address the board. Times may not be yielded to other speakers. During the meeting, please refrain from clapping or outbursts of any sort so that we can proceed with dignity and with decorum by not infringing on any individual's First Amendment rights. I need to remind everyone to direct all comments to the chairperson, not to individual board members or the superintendent. Board members may or may not address any citizen input statements at the end of the citizen input comments. As board members listen to citizens without interruption, citizens are asked to give board members the same respect. As per Florida State Statute 1001372, subsection 3, the presiding officer of any district school board may order the removal from a public meeting held by the district school board of any person interfering with the expeditious or orderly process of such meeting, provided such officer has first issued a warning that continued interference with the orderly process of the meeting will result in removal. I will be calling you up two at a time. The first person will be called to the podium to speak, and the second person will be in line to speak. Speakers shall not engage in personal attacks or abusive language. The chair has the right to terminate any speaker's privilege to address the board if the rule is violated. If you have anything again to give to board members or the superintendent, please do so through our executive assistant, Mrs. Moray. Okay, our first speaker is Catherine Scott, followed by Mary Dotsey.
Hello. I was not expecting to speak first, so this is going to be fun. My name is Catherine Scott. I work at Sebastian Elementary as a self-care aide in the ESC department. I know that right now the board, we're in the process of negotiating for a raise with our contracts. And really and truly, we need one. The inflation rate has gone so high. Like, if right now, I cannot afford to live on my own. I am living with my parents because I do not have enough money from what I make from the district to actually for my entire month, that would just be the rent. No utilities, no food, nothing else. It'd just be my rent. I work a second job on top of my full-time job too, and I am perpetually exhausted because I'm at work from 8 a.m. in the morning till 8:30 at night. So really and truly, and it's just, I know everything has gone up, and I know, it's like, I know our insurance is going up. And it's like, if with a raise, if a raise does not happen, it's gonna be a pay cut to us. And that, I'm barely making ends meet now. I don't know, with the insurance rates, and I can't go without insurance. It's just not possible. So because I know as soon as I do, something's gonna happen. But, yeah, that's about it. But please, keep it in mind.
Thank you so much. Mary Dotsey, and then Johnny Poindexter.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Dotsey. I work for the food department in Indian River County. I've been with the school district 5 years. I've been with the union 4. I just want to say that I've been involved with the union. I've been involved with my coworkers. I hear their stories. We check in with each other every day. Mary, how's it going? What's going on with the union? I said, you got to come to a meeting. You need to come to a school board meeting. Mary, I work 2 and 3 jobs. The cost of living has killed everybody in my district, in my area. A decent 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in Indian River County is over $1,600. That's not including utilities, homeowners insurance, health insurance. My car insurance is going up. I've never had a claim, and my car insurance is going up. I make $19,551 a year. Here's my paycheck. I bring home $593 every 2 weeks. That's $1,190-something. That's nothing. I'm not asking you, the school, to pay my bills. I've actually gone for more jobs, I've gone for more hours, but the rate is different. I make $17.53 an hour. That's pretty darn good for the school. But when you cut that into 24 paychecks, even though I'm a 9-month employee, because I'm in that district, my paychecks are cut into 24 paychecks, $19,000. So by the time deductions and insurance and everything else, it's coming out to $593 a paycheck. I have 2 other jobs. I work in 2 different restaurants. I have 1 night off, Monday. I get to come here and I get to watch. I'm not asking for a miracle, but I'm talking for my coworkers who can't be here. My one lady, she's 78 years old. She works at Lowe's till 8 o'clock tonight. 78 years old, and she still has to work. And she's worked for the school district for 30 years. I had a student last year. I worked for the high school for 4 years. I loved it. A lot of the kids I knew from elementary school because my kids went to school here. And he was a headache. Oh my God, he always gave me a hard time, but we got to the point where we would joke around. So last year I said, so am I gonna watch you walk across the stage? He goes, why does it matter? No one's gonna be there for me. My family has to work. I got that, I totally knew that. So when he graduated and he walked across the stage, I was in tears because I was gonna go up there. So when all the kids, when all the kids were like cheering each other on, I walked up to him, he goes, oh my God, the lunch lady showed up. The lunch lady, because that's what we do. You know, we're not just feeding kids, we're listening to them. I'm asking you, how's your day going? Because I care. I have fed more kids out of my pocket because I know they're hungry. And that might affect their learning, that might affect their behavior. If a kid wants an extra apple, I'm gonna pay for it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Johnny Poindexter, and then Diane Parentella.
Good evening. My name is Johnny Poindexter, and I'm the head custodian at AR Prep. And I speak for all my employees that work, both of the support staff. We need more money, and we cannot live. I mean, insurance going up, taxes going up, food going up. You get a carton of eggs is $9 for an egg. You know, we just need more money, and we please consider giving our support staff more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Diane Parentella, April Gerke.
Good evening. The primary objective of the Library Media Center is to implement, enrich, and support the educational program of the school. The Library Media Center shall provide a wide range of materials on all levels of difficulty with diversity of appeal and with the representation of different points of view. The school library plays a unique role in promoting intellectual freedom. It serves as a point of voluntary access to information and ideas, and as a learning laboratory for students as they acquire critical thinking and problem-solving skills needed in a pluralistic society. Collection development should reflect the philosophy inherent in Article 1 of the Library Bill of Rights. Books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people of the community the library serves. Materials should not be excluded because of the origin, background, or views of those contributing to their creation. A diverse collection should contain content by and about a wide array of people and cultures to authentically reflect a variety of ideas, information, stories, and experiences. There is research behind school library circulation statistics. A study completed by the National Center for Education Studies in 2007 found 4th grade students who read for fun every day score the highest on reading assessment tests. The 3/4 of students who reported reading for fun on their own time once a week or more performed at the high end of basic on the NAEP, while the 14% of students who never or hardly ever read for fun performed below the basic level. Students who talked about their reading with family and friends on a weekly basis had a higher average score than students who talked about their books once a month or less. One of the favorite parts of my job is talking books with students. The circulation stats from libraries in our district currently varies by school. I believe one reason for this is the push several years ago to promote more STEAM lessons in elementary libraries to address science scores on the state assessments. And the following comes from an opinion piece in the LA Times from December 2021, titled, "Fewer Kids Are Reading for Fun Anymore. They are losing out on more than great stories." One contributor to this dismaying trend Seems obvious, social media and other digital activities are heavy draws and can gobble up hours of time. But some librarians and students point to other reasons as well. As students advance in school, required reading of textbooks and classroom-assigned literature increases. They may be reading more, but often enjoying it less. The homework load also is heavier in high school than in lower grades, often exceeding the recommended maximum of 2 hours a day. A British study found that reading for pleasure had much wider benefits, resulting in better vocabulary, spelling, and mathematical abilities. And reading for pleasure was more important to those successes than were the students' socioeconomic backgrounds. If we truly want to achieve the moonshot goal of 90% of our third graders reading on grade level, we need to focus more on choice reading that happens through the library, and purchasing new books on all levels of difficulty with diversity of appeal and with the representation of different points of view will help us achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parentella. April Gerke, and then Jeff Leake.
Good evening. My name is April Yerke. I work at Sebastian River Middle School. I am here to speak to the issue of salary increases for CWA employees. Currently, the CPI, the inflation rate for Tampa, is 7.3% over the last 12 months. As a district employee, our health insurance costs will increase by 5% this year. This is a 12.3% increase in our immediate cost of living. Recently, our union was offered a 2.5% raise. This is insufficient to meet the needs of your support staff. I say your support staff because ultimately we do serve at the approval and pleasure of the board. My hope would be that the board would encourage the district negotiating team to work with the CWA 3180 leadership to come to a workable salary increase. Support staff are the backbone of the schools. We are your secretaries, your nurses, your cafeteria workers, your transportation staff, your plant operators, your warehouse workers, your plumbers, your electricians, your mechanics, your locksmiths, your IT staff, and the like. We support our teachers, we support our staff and our students daily. It would be wonderful to feel acknowledged and seen by those that we work so hard for each day. There's a book of ancient wisdom that states in Romans 4:4, when people work, their wages are not a gift, but something they have earned. We have earned and deserve the opportunity to make a more sustainable wage. Thank you for your time and consideration in this manner.
Thank you, Ms. Yerke. Mr. Leake, and then Tammy Bogart.
Good evening. Let me start by saying congrats on your tests, and you're just fantastic. Although I'd be the last person in the world to say that defines this school district. But anyway, the last time I spoke to you, I thanked you for your difficult work as board members, especially in dealing with the extremists in Tallahassee. Little did I know then that it would become even more difficult as of last week. We make our own judgments of what motivated the inclusion of the clownish clarification. Instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. In addition to that so-called clarification, one expert commenter expressed his concern with the overall emphasis and omissions of the entire document. The overall, in quotes, the overall picture certainly seems geared to de-emphasize the backbreaking agricultural labor, which was the lot of the vast majority of slaves during the 200-plus years of slavery. He further points out that a significant part of the curriculum is focused on talking about all other societies that practice slavery and other places where slavery was arguably worse. To put in contemporary terms, there's a lot of whataboutism and blame shifting. He further takes issue with the treatment of Reconstruction in the standards. Others have expressed concern about the clarification that students must be made aware of how violence was perpetrated both against and by African Americans. What, they were supposed to wait to be murdered as they were on November 2nd, 1920, sorry. My concern as a retired classroom teacher is how we expect Indian River classroom teachers to deal with these efforts to sanitize and rewrite history in their instruction for our students. How can we, as concerned citizens, help right this situation? How are you, as board members, going to help Indian River teachers convey the full, honest picture of our history, the full truth, the good and the bad? Anything less is a disservice to our students. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. And now we have Tammy Bogart, followed by Kenneth Simon.
Good evening. I want to touch on a couple of things. One, as you're reviewing the budget for the coming fiscal year, I wanted to ask that you look at allocating additional funds to improve security at schools. I think ideally high schools, since that seems to be where the most prevalent threats seem to be, would be the first and wisest place to start. I know that we have either, and forgive me if I get the number incorrect, 12 or 14 million set aside for mental health services. I don't know if a portion of that can then be used to improve school security, but I know as a taxpayer and citizen, I would love to see that happen and for us to work proactively to prevent problems rather than waiting for something to happen and acting reactively. I'm also going to take this time to touch on what several people have addressed here this evening regarding wages, whether it's for staff or teachers, just to give you a little bit of information that might help you make an informed decision. My daughter is a federal employee. She works for the VA. All employees last week were granted a cost of living increase, not a merit increase. She got that earlier in the year. They were granted a cost of living increase of 15% because they understand that the cost of living is going up. And it was a lifesaver for her because, like staff and teachers and most of us living here and around the country, are facing enormous increases in the cost of goods and groceries and taxes and insurance. And the only way to make up for that, or attempt to, is to provide for a cost of living increase. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Kenneth Simon and then Anthony Stewart.
Good evening. I'd like to speak about the First Amendment and as it pertains to public schools. And quoting Thomas Jefferson in what he spoke on June 12, 1823, to Supreme Court Justice William Johnson, quote, "On every question of construction, carry ourselves back to the time when the Constitution was adopted. Recollect the spirit manifested in the debates, and instead of trying what meaning may be squeezed out of the text or invented against it, conform to the probable one in which it was passed," end quote. James Madison wrote to Henry Lee in June 25, 1824, quote, "I entirely concur in the propriety of resorting to the sense in which the Constitution was accepted and ratified by the nation. In that sense alone, it is the legitimate Constitution. And if that be not the guide in expounding it, there can be no security for a consistent and stable exercise of its powers. What a metamorphosis would be produced in the code of law if all that its ancient phraseology were to be taken in its modern sense." In the 1960s and 1970s, the High Court justices interpreted the First Amendment's Establishment Clause to mean that prayer, Bible reading, or viewing the Ten Commandments posted on a wall as unconstitutional if conducted in public schools. But in this decade, several cases regarding religious liberty, the Supreme Court has ruled that the Establishment Clause must be interpreted in reference to its historical intent and meaning. So the weak and faulty interpretations which wiped out our Judeo-Christian heritage for so long have been overturned and our First Amendment rights are restored. I propose that a psalm be read from the Bible and the Lord's Prayer be repeated each day of school as the day begins, so the children have in mind clear and absolute standards of right and wrong.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Anthony Stewart, followed by Edward Holmes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Jones, Dr. Moore too. I'm going to say this because I was one of the first ones to talk to Dr. Moore when he first came. I commend you on the progress that academically that our kids have made, and that was something you assured me of. But I like to say that I am the grandson of one who was born in slavery. And I was aware of what was going on as far as what the gentleman was talking about this history being taught. I saw the stats that you put on the board about improvements that we've made academically. And I believe that if that is to continue, if it's not broke, why fix it? I think history should always be centered around truth. And when we fabricate history, I think we take away the true meaning of it. Beginning of the year, I came to you all and I introduced you to two players of racial injustice, two white supremacists, one by the name of Christopher Rufo, and the other by the name of, from Hungary, Viktor Orban, who actually had plotted many years to change our democracy to an autocracy. And yet, I came to you about the equity policy. And I told you that that was part of this scheme to change democracy to an autocracy. And I don't think you heard me then, just like I don't think you hear me now. I came to the board before you, Dr. Moore, about when, before you came here, they spent over $6 million in 2.5 years paying attorney fees to fight the desegregation order. That money could have been spent on some of these people, our support people, who really deserve it. The teachers couldn't teach without the bus drivers. They couldn't teach well without the maintenance people. That money could have been used to help those people who need help, not to fight a desegregation order. And I just hope that you are listening to some of your people now, and that you stop this madness and don't let our governor, who is a white supremacist, dictate what we teach our students, because my children ain't gonna go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Edward Holmes and then Thomas Kenny.
Thank you. I understand the ramifications of this new curriculum, the standards for the curriculum. In 597 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar attacked Jerusalem, took the city captive, took them off into exile, gave them Babylonian names, changed their diet, which was a Babylonian diet, changed their history as if it didn't happen. Regardless of our history, it happened. And there can be no refuting of the fact. And to say that slavery was beneficial is a farce, it's a fallacy. The one thing that I hope that doesn't happen is the fact that our black educators and our black administrators are forced to be a part of this elective course to teach it, because the kids are going to lose all respect for those that they're supposed to look up to who are achieving something. To say that it benefited them, I don't understand it, and I'm sure there may be some on the board that may not understand it, but how could it benefit any individual to be a slave? To be beaten, to be whipped? Well, maybe you can become a doctor because you had to heal your own wounds. Or to be sold time and time again. Maybe you can work on the New York Stock Exchange because you've been sold. Or to be separated from your family, to watch your mother sold, to watch your child sold. Maybe, just maybe, you can be a psychologist. I beg the school board to not take one black educator, because there are few, and have them to teach this elective because it has to be taught because it's mandated, but allow them their dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Thomas Kenny, and then our final speaker on citizen input, Michael Marsh.
How y'all doing? Good. Wonderful summer so far. I'm here to talk about the Achievement Gap Policy 2130. I think it needs to be revisited. It was passed with a bunch of policies last year, I believe August or September, can't remember. It was passed with 2 others. It was not debated at a business meeting. It was debated at a work group or workshop. And it was passed 5-0 unanimously because the other 2 policies, one of them, which was highly debated at that time, were passed unanimously. So they're all passed together. And the reason I say this is because in light of what's been going on with the Joint Equity Work Group membership in the past couple of months, since March. As you know, one of them was removed from his job as Director of Human Resources for racial comments specifically about people in this community, in Vero Beach and Sebastian. And I commend the city of Fort Pierce for moving with absolute speed and judicious work in doing that. And the reason I'm really bringing up this achievement gap policy is because there is a political group that has a seat at the table. Now, I work for Moms for Liberty. I'm policy media director. And I could stand here right now and ask for that same seat to be in that work, to be part of that achievement gap work group. I'd rather it just go away. But if not, I want a seat at the table. I think our group deserves it, because we're a political group just like the NAACP. The superintendent will create an achievement group oversight work group comprised of 8 members, 4 appointed by the IRC, NAACP, 3 appointed by the school district, so on. And that group then does work that makes recommendations on the district work to the board and the NAACP for 5 years after we reach unitary status. Now, that doesn't make sense. A political group should not be doing administrative work of any sort inside the school system. I understand the sensitivity of it. We're hearing about it right now. But that being said, I thought the school system is not a place for politics. So I suggest that you revisit this in an effort to repeal it or fix it. Because the school system, educators of all backgrounds, are the ones who will understand how to fix an achievement gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney. Michael Marsh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael C. Marsh. So I thought I knew every definition of woke, but apparently I was mistaken. The personal benefit from slavery. I mean, why stop there? What about the personal benefit from concentration camps? I mean, let's not stop there, right? I want to read a letter that you guys have in front of you. This came from a real freedom fighter, Jennifer Jenkins, Brevard Public Schools Board Member, District 3. To the members of the State Board of Education, as a representative of Brevard County School Board District 3, I am vehemently opposed to and denounce the actions of the Florida Department of Education to adopt new African American history standards. The addition of standard clarifications whitewashes the oppressive experiences of African Americans throughout our nation's history. As an educational institution, it is our duty to teach all of our history, the accomplishments, and the disappointments, regardless how uncomfortable or shameful to ensure our students learn an accurate depiction of the origin, development, and continual progress of this great country that not only professes equality for all in name only, but does so through intentional actions. In light of recent legislative moves, I am not shocked by the conduct of this board. The blatant disregard for the concerns of key stakeholders of the state of Florida establishes that the actions of this board were done unwittingly, but done so to advance its objective to not only redraft our history, but to ensure that ignorance will leave room for us to relive the deepest, darkest parts of it. I stand with those impacted by these egregious decisions and will continue to speak out against them until they are rectified. History will forever enshrine the actions of this board, regardless of how hard you seek to rewrite it. I implore you, School District of Indian River County, this is disgusting. And just a point of clarification from the last one, I believe NAACP is a 501c3 nonpartisan group, a little different than Moms for Terror, that is a partisan group. Now, 2023, we still have permission slips to enter into the library. I heard one of my favorite three letters, ESE. Those are the real problems that we have. Not this mess, not the fact that others get to say what my children can and cannot learn about. Let's fix ESC, and thank God under the new assistant superintendent that it has already started. ESC has been broken for years, and that was the norm, and nothing was done. No checks and balances, period. So thank God the true problem solver now has an amazing team behind him. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Thank you, everybody. All right, Dr. Moore, any comments before I ask board members?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are in negotiations. We will negotiate this week with CWA. And the reality is this is hard and difficult because we are a fixed income district where our enrollment is based on our finances are based on a number of students, and our district continues to possibly decline. So we will give until it hurts. I can give every assurance to our board. The cabinet, Mr. Fagan, Mr. Bass, who is leading our negotiation team, are bending over backwards to do absolutely everything we possibly can. Because it was mentioned, you're right, we can't run the school system without these individuals. We have students who absolutely depend on these individuals, and we want them to be as compensated as absolutely best we can. It was briefly mentioned regarding our federal court case. We do have a court case. We do not have the responsibility of signing individuals to the NAACP's work group. That comes directly from a court order that the parties mutually agreed upon. So the district does not have that authority. They mentioned the Black History curriculum that the state just approved last week. We are pending additional information from the state, and we will take a deep look at it and make sure that we are adhering to what is in place, while at the same time being very critical to the needs of our community and making sure that we get this right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other board member comments, concerns? Just want to thank everyone. As Dr. Moore said, you know, we're up here listening to all the CWA employees. It's a very, very tough time here to live here. All the comments made regarding, you know, salary and just being able to live. The one speaker had talked about her daughter with the federal increase. You know, those things reach our heart. I know that, and we will continue to listen and continue to do everything we can, because as a former principal, I know that team effort with our support staff is what made that school, with our instructional employees also, but working together. So thank you very much for all of your comments. We are listening. Anyone else?
Sure.
Ms. Berenborg?
Yeah, I was out of town and I heard about, you know, the vice president being upset with our African-American standards that were being presented. And I thought, oh, wow, did this get bent out of proportion? And then I watched the meeting myself and looked up the standards and read them. I was appalled at one of the standards, appalled. I think that the people that were putting it together didn't realize that by adding a clarification and an example, you twist the meaning of what the original standard was. Now, some of the standards are excellent. I learned by reading some of the standards of things I didn't even know. But I think they left out a few things. You know, they left out the word racism. It's in the Holocaust standards, but it's not in the African American standards. You know, the Ocoee massacre, I have read about that in the past, and when I saw the example of what was put there, I thought, wow, that wording was really not good. So I hope that the state is listening, the State Board of Education, and you know, when we write policy, and sometimes it's not right, people ask us to bring it back and relook at it, we do. I'm sure hoping that that happens here, because I think the intent on these standards are good. I think that there are a lot of good standards in there, but I think there are some missing, and for sure 2 of them that need to be rewritten.
I too will be watching very closely when Dr. Moore and the district staff gets a little bit more information as to how those are worded, how they are, what their intent is. But again, what many people said here tonight is we want to get it right without offending anyone. And African American history, Holocaust, all of that, those are things from which we learn so we can not make mistakes again and make sure that we move forward with our students. So we will listen. Any other board member? All righty. Now, the next item on the agenda, approval of the consent agenda items. So I'd like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda items as amended.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Berenborg, a motion as amended. A second, please.
A second.
All right, Ms. Rosario. Any discussion, board members? All righty. The question is on adoption of consent agenda items as amended. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, Mr. Barefoot. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, now we'll go into consent agenda items that were pulled to action. All right. First of all, we have to see if we have any citizen input, and I want to make sure I get these right. 6E was our first one pulled. Ms. Rosario, I just want to read this carefully.
Yes.
Request to set public hearing date of 8/28 for revised policy 7250 and new policies, including the mascot, district strategic plan, and legislative priority. We have Mr. Marsh. Would you like to speak to that, please? That action item. I have your name there. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Michael Marsh. I just wanted to, through the chair, thank Ms. Rosario for bringing this up. We definitely do need a date to discuss this. I know the mascot was a hot item, and I thank God for all those community members that got everything done over at Gifford. So I look forward to coming and speaking at that hearing date. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, Dr. Moore, these were your items originally. The first item pulled was 6E, so we need your comments and recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As just mentioned, this is to revise policy 7250 and then the creation of new policies regarding mascot, district strategic plan, and legislative priorities. These policies were discussed as the board was convened during a workshop. The board was able to provide feedback to me and staff based on the creation or revisions to these policies. We went back based on board feedback, made revisions, and those are the policies that are before you today to ultimately set public hearing. That is the item.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'd ask the board for a motion. We need a motion and then a second before we can go into discussion.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Is there a second for this?
Second.
Second. All right. Thank you very much. We'll go into discussion. Ms. Rosario, you pulled that, so you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome.
I pulled it because it's not routine. It's an item that I believe we should vote on separately in action. But I did have a question, something that I just realized. Usually when we are adopting policy or setting for a public hearing, there's already a Neola number on there. This one doesn't have it. The mascot, the new policies, the mascot, nor the district strategic plan, and the legislative priority one. So will those be forthcoming before we do the final adoption.
Okay, good question.
Through the chair. My understanding from asking about that very question is that once these new policies are adopted, they will then be assigned a policy number.
Once they're adopted?
Yes.
But when we adopt them, they are in effect right away. So if they don't have a number, how long will it take for Neola to give us a number or a policy?
So we can certainly do the legwork as we set the public hearing, to provide the heads up that we will be bringing these new policies and that we will need a policy number to ensure that the turnaround time is minimized.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion there? Okay, could I have a motion on this one, Ms. Rosario?
Yes, I make a motion to adopt the request to set a public hearing date of 8/28/23 for revised policy 7250 and new policies, mascot, district strategic plan, and legislative priority.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Posca. Any discussion? All righty. All those in favor of approving to set the public hearing date of 8/28 for revised policy 7250 and new policies, mascot, district strategic plan, and legislative priority, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, great. That passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And then we will go on to 6F, Ms. Rosario, and that was request to set public hearing date for revised policy 8330, student records and student directory revisions. Mr. Marsh, did you want to speak to that one? Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
I remember that. I'm going to forget it.
It's not easy.
I'm going to forget that.
Mr. Fagan.
Thank you. Michael Marsh, Media Specialist for Mike for Liberty. And through the chair, I just want to thank Ms. Rosario for bringing this up tonight. And I look forward to discussing this revised policy, student records and student directory revisions. Very good work. Just like to commend all those that take part in the work. Work is good, work will continue to be good, and we have systems in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we need a motion for discussion on this item, 6F.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rosario. Make a motion. Dr. Posca, second. All right. Now we can go into discussion. Ms. Rosario, you pulled it, so go right ahead.
Yes, I pulled this out. We talked about it earlier in the workshop, and I know that the board talked about moving it forward and then addressing some of the issues or the concerns that I shared afterward. But I always have a concern about that because we shouldn't quarterback the policies. We should always take care of whatever needs to be taken care of in terms of editing policies and making sure that it's right the first time around instead of going back and changing it. Some of the concerns that I had was the definition of personally identifiable information. This is just one thing. I have a stack. Of course, I'll share it with you, Mr. Fagan. But personally identifiable information according to the code 34 CFR 99.3 is very different than what is indicated on the recommended policy. So according to the code, the definition is regarding biometric record, under biometric record, and that the biometric record as used in this definition of personally identifiable information means a record of one or more measurable biological or behavioral characteristics that can be used for automated recognition of an individual. Examples include fingerprints, retina and iris patterns, voice prints, DNA sequence, facial characteristics, and handwriting. It does not include some of these other things that are printed as a definition for personally identifiable information that is on the recommended policy. Instead, what is within the definition is actually under the category of directory information, and directory information means the information contained in an education record of a student that would not generally be considered harmful or an invasion of privacy is disclosed, not to be limited to the student's name, address, telephone listing, electronic mail, address, photograph, and so on and so forth. So that's just one area that I have a concern with, and I have a big concern with it because if you keep reading, there's one place that says that we can share information with outside, let me get to that page. That we can share information without the parent's knowledge, and then in another section say that that's not true, that we need the parent's consent. So there's a lot of concerns here that I have, and that sharing personally identifiable information of students like name, and address and birth date, that to me is a concern legally, and I understand that this is the code. I understand that the code is written. I'm looking at Ms. Shattuck here because my question is for Ms. Shattuck in this area. Because also, as I mentioned, the other code, 26 U.S. Code 152, which I'm sure you've probably looked at right now, identifies obviously the definition of an eligible child or qualifying child quite differently than the other code. And also, it's apparently different in this policy.
I know during the workshop, Ms. Shattuck.
I'm not done with my question.
Well, we've gone over that. I'll come back to you. Okay. But Mr. Fagan, I remember you said something in the workshop and then Ms. Shattuck. So let's go to you two and then we'll go back to Ms. Rosario because I have a couple comments too.
Madam Chair, if we could begin with Ms. Shattuck.
Okay, sure. That's fine.
Initial response to Ms. Rosario's
But I didn't
first
ask
question.
the question. I didn't ask the question yet.
Well, you did have a concern regarding.
I had a concern, but my question is, Ms. Shattuck, when it comes to these codes, now I know that we're bound by law. I get that. And I'm okay with using the legal terms. I'm okay with cutting and pasting what's in law or what's in these codes in our policy. Totally okay with that. What I worry about is the difference between the definitions and making sure that our policy matches what these say. And then if these have not been updated in 50 years, which I don't even know when they've been updated last, would they accurately reflect, well, they probably wouldn't, our current day and age with regard to sharing personal information for students. So I've been in education for a pretty long time, as many of the people here, and we just know that common best practice is to preserve sharing personal identifiable information, such as student name or birth date or address. We don't do that. This is telling us that we can, because the codes are telling us that we can. I have a very big concern about that when it comes to student privacy.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Shattuck?
Yes, thank you. So to try to address these concerns in order, with regard to personally identifiable information, you're reading the wrong part of 34 Code of Federal Regulations 99.3. You're reading the definition of biometric data, but if you scroll down further, there's a different definition of personally identifiable information that more closely matches what's written in the policy. So I do not believe that that definition in the policy is a concern. With regard to the concern about sharing information, so this policy does track FERPA. FERPA generally prohibits sharing student information without parental consent, but there are some exceptions. So what this policy does is it tracks those exceptions. You will note that a lot of the exceptions parents can actually opt out of. So for example, directory information, this policy would limit it very narrowly to just student grade and name, I believe. Correct. But even so, a parent could opt out of sharing even that. So there are lots of options for parents in terms of even greater protections for student information. That's certainly a concern both under FERPA and the policy, and one of the district that where there were decisions to be made, they opted for more narrowly defined, because you can actually define directory information much more broadly, and this really narrows it very much. And then in terms of, I believe there was another question in there. Now I'm not remembering if there was another question in there.
There was, but I think you kind of, you encompassed all of it within your response. I'm just very concerned with having students' information being considered free for anybody to request, essentially.
Mr. Fagan, yeah.
To the chair, if I can help clarify. So the way the policy is now, it was missing a few items. So we went in at a very high level, defined one item, directory information. Directory information is only the child's name and grade level. We further defined that said a parent can opt out of that being disclosed anywhere. So we've protected the child from the ability of anyone getting any more information than that and allowed the parents to opt out of that. Now, what we've also stated in the policy is that we do collect personal identifiable information on students so we can use online educational tools. But at no point in time is any of that information ever disclosed.
Right.
Now, we will list the vendors that we use and the information they collect on a separate website. There's a link in the policy where a parent can go to that website, see the products that we use and what information we collect in order for that child to have access to that product. But at no point in time is any of that information ever disclosed. Each one of these vendors must sign a data sharing agreement that they are not allowed to ever disclose any of that information. Now, parents are not allowed to opt out of that because we have to collect that information from them, their student name, number, and et cetera, so they can log into the product, so that the teachers can track them. But at no point in time is that information even remotely discussed as being released.
Any other board members as far as comment or question? Ms. Berenborg.
Yeah, I'm reading on page 7 at the bottom where it says personally identifiable information. It says that basically student education records shall not be disclosed to any person, public body, political subdivision, or agency of the federal government except when authorized by state or federal law, which I think is what you're referring to, or a response to a lawfully issued subpoena or court order. And then it goes on to define what the prior written consent or without prior written consent means. So to me, when I read it, it was like, okay, a parent has the option still to withhold it if they choose to. And so it's right there. So I also know that you have to give some of this information out for the state when they're doing FEFP, when they're doing state assessments. So that's the type of thing that I assumed is in here that's being requested for, not somebody else from the outside asking for information so that they can make money off of students or find out who the students are.
To the chair, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As a board member, as a former principal, when I saw you were doing a cleanup on this, I thought it was really, really good because, we'll see public records requests, they want this, this, and this. I'm thinking, no. These are the kind of things we need to look at, make sure our parents are aware that, we're protecting the students, we're doing what we need to do, and we will not violate any law. So I'm glad you brought it up because it brought it back to me as far as how important this is. Anyone else on the 6F? All right, so at this time, I'd like to have a motion, please, for 6F for request for setting the public hearing date of August 28th for revised policy 8330, student records and student directory revision.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Ms. Berenborg, motion.
Second.
Dr. Posca, second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Ario and everybody. All right, our next one is 7D, and that is, I want to read it correctly, approval of Media Center book orders for 23-24. Mr. Marsh, you had, thank you.
Thank you very much. So this approval, I believe this is going to be the first time that we've seen something like this, and it's good because some of those naughty books probably would never entered the school district, as some may say. So I'm glad to see this, and let the experts do what the experts need to do, and we're just going to keep the porn out of the libraries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Dr. Moore, 7D, this is your item, so your report and recommendation, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the approval of the books being selected by 4 of our elementary schools, no, 3 of our elementary schools and 1 middle school to purchase books. There was one clarification based on the conversation that we had at workshop today. This item is identifying the process that we use to select the books, which is 100% aligned to the guidance provided by the Florida Department of Education as well as our policy, and the identification of the books themselves. There was an issue regarding cost and expiring cost. Some of the items or the list reported don't even have cost on them, but this doesn't supersede my authority to purchase the book. So what we are looking for here is to identify the to inform the board regarding the actual books themselves as well as the process. So Ms. Becerra, Dr. Shafty, anything that we needed to add in the presentation of this item?
No, sir, you covered it all.
All right.
Okay, I'll need a motion for discussion on this, a motion and a second.
Make a motion?
Thank you, Ms. Rosario, and Dr. Posca, second. All right, discussion. Ms. Rosario, you're up.
Yeah, I pulled it because I wanted to know the update on the Follett, because I knew that there was some, you said that somebody said earlier today that they would look into why we have the Follett list here when we're no longer going to use Follett. I think in part you mentioned it, Dr. Moore, just now, but that the prices, it's really the concern with the prices wasn't about whether it falls under your purview, whether, you know, you can make that authority. It was just a matter of saying that what we are being asked to approve is not accurate. You know, the date here is 5/10, of course, and price is guaranteed through 6/27, so the prices are bound to change. Also, some of the other concerns that I had was the uniformity in the submission of the lists, and then also that some of the lists were not clear in terms of title, author, you know, on a line. We talked about it earlier, so I have some concerns on that end, and then, of course, some concerns that I've shared previously with regard to the number of people who are representing the SAC teams at the schools, how many those are and what that the makeup is. And I do understand that the SAC is a good representation, but it's not a thorough representation. So if a school has 2 SAC members, that's not really going to give a good indication of getting the community at whole or the community at large, getting them involved in the process. So it's not anything new that I haven't already said before. I do appreciate all of the work that you have been doing, and Ms. Becerra, to ensure that we are certainly moving toward the goal. We're certainly moving in the right direction in this fashion, but I still do have concerns with the lists that were provided. And so at either rate, this is not an item that is routine. This is an item that really should have been pulled for action anyway, especially considering the controversies that have been surrounding the media center books. One question that I do have that I did not hear today was the ongoing process to allow for other schools to submit their lists moving forward. So what is that process going to be? Are we cutting it off at a certain point and then after that no more purchases? Or are we going to allow schools to continually submit requests throughout the year?
Dr. Moore, go ahead.
We will be as fluid as we need to be. I think schools are probably home watching this. I see a few media specialists in the audience right now to see how this goes. And as they bring those materials, those orders back to us, we will process them quickly. We will norm on the list that we provide to the board. That is an opportunity for improvement, but it has been way too long in terms of us not purchasing materials for our media centers. And I want to thank these 4 media specialists and their principals for getting these items in. I know Dr. Shafty will call me after and say I didn't mention this, but prior to having those SAC meetings, they were advertised that this was going to be on the agenda and being discussed.
Yeah. I do want to make a few comments. I mentioned this at the last meeting. You know, there's still that option if parents don't want their children to read books, you can check it out. So, you know, that's a safety for some parents. And I was just so
so darn happy that we're starting this movement, because having media centers not have any new orders for 2 years, that's really, really tough. In the information that was shared earlier about, reading for enjoyment, not the books you have to read because of certain things, but I really, really want to get back to that, because we looked at the high school kids checking out books, and that concerns me. And I know they have all these other new platforms where they can read, but we don't ever want to lose that enjoyment of reading. So I appreciate, it's been a long haul to get this right and follow state statute, but I think we're moving forward. Any other board member with any, Ms. Berenborg?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for your diligence. We have Oslo, Osceola, and VBE in the House, and I appreciate the fact that you were here while we vote on that. So good for you coming in on your summer break. And I know it's been a long time since people have gotten to order, and I think they have the budget money. If they want to order a book, anytime they want to order a book, it needs to go through, as long as it's going through the process that has now been vetted and vetted and vetted and vetted, that we need to do our due diligence, set it forward, and vote on it. Because it's been a long time since kids have gotten new materials in their library, and I think, shame on us if we don't continue to do that throughout the year. So I don't think there needs to be a date which everybody needs to come to it and do it at once. I think it can be all year long, and I applaud you for getting it done right away.
Any other discussion on this one?
Sure. I'll say I'm a huge supporter of having good books in the library that kids can enjoy and read. I grew up probably going to the library was probably my favorite place, actually. I started going around 9 years old, and I started getting a stack of books out of the library every couple of weeks. My mom was a big reader, which is probably where I got it from. And I remember, I think when I was about 15, I started working nights at a gas station, Cumberland Farms. And I used to walk to work, it was about 1.5 miles, and I would read while I walked to work. And the other neighborhood kids would see that, and they thought it was hilarious. But I think reading, for me personally, was probably one of the biggest deciding factors in my ability to succeed academically, ultimately being a doctor. So I fully support having lots of resources in the library. I want to get the kids in there. I want them to be enjoying it, and I think we're ultimately going to be on the same page, as long as we're not, bickering over little things, right? That's the key to this.
Thank you very much. So I need a motion for 7D, and that is approval of Media Center book orders for 23-24.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Berenborg, motion.
Second.
Second, Dr. Posca. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, thank you. 4-1, that carries. Next one is 10C, and that is approval of 23-24 mental health allocation plan. Mr. Marsh, going to speak on that one? Is he still here? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Marsh. Come on in. Be ready to go.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I guess I just had a few questions, and I think that this is a great plan to have, but I guess I want to know to detect a mental health issue. So what exactly would that look like? Because I understand AIM, and I think this is amazing. And it talks about the alternative intervention measures, and that there will be an advocate that will identify students using the early warning indicators dashboard. I don't expect an answer tonight, but I'm sure there is an answer, because this is under Student Affairs, Advocacy, and Access. But I guess it's a little troubling to me when I think about who gets to decide, well, what is a mental health issue? Now, obviously, if a student is exhibiting self-harm or wants to hurt someone else, I get that. That makes sense to me. But with everything that's taken place in many different arenas, LGBTQ, so on and so forth, I want to know what defines as a mental health issue. And then when students are referred, there's this identification and assessment. So how does this get conveyed to the parent? Because what I've learned with ESC, I think a lot of times as parents, we really don't know what we're saying yes to. And I think this is very impressive, this mental health allocation plan, and I'm sure these are very simple questions that can get answered. But just as a parent, I kind of struggle with this because I work in an industry where the scariest three letters are DCF. And as we know, many are mandatory reporters in the school district. So I just want to make sure we're not going to muddy the waters, because once DCF begins, good luck on them ending. So, and these are things that offline I can call over to student affairs, but again, I just want to be clear. Let's know what exactly that mental health issue will look like, what this identification and assessment, how do we decide what this advocate, or who this advocate is? Just some questions there that I'm sure can get answered very easily, but I just wanted to mention that tonight because just like in the criminal realm, we don't want to get these students end up in a mental health arena either, because that will also affect them later on down the line, whether it's the military, law enforcement, so on and so forth. If it's needed, great, but let's just make sure we know what these issues are that we're looking to detect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Dr. Moore, it's your consent item for your report and recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As listed, this is the approval of the 23-24 mental health allocation plan. I'll refer the presentation to Mr. Seymour, followed by Mr. Fagan, and I think we're going to answer most of those questions that were just posed as we present the item.
Okay, so we will start then for our board member. We need a motion and a second for discussion. Anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Pasco. Okay, now into discussion. So we'll go ahead with the presentation first, Dr. Moore?
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Seymour.
just in case that could answer a lot of questions, baby.
With the chair, today I did have my mental health coordinator, and I provided the information. I would like to have her come up with us, and she is definitely detailed in this information.
To the right.
Oh, where?
There she is. Thank you, Mr. Seymour and Ms. Ainge.
But just to answer some of the questions, I do have some concerns as well. My biggest concern is who has the training to recognize any type of issues with students. How is it reported? Who is it reported to? And the turnaround time that we get a response from that individual so that we can definitely go back and see to the needs of that child. We've had some cases where things worked out quite well, and others where it could have been better, but I think it all was dependent upon the training of that individual to recognize those difficulties that students are having. It can be anyone on a campus. It does not have to be a trained psychologist. It needs to be a custodian. It needs to be a nurse. It needs to be a principal, a bus driver, anyone recognizing these concerns that students may have. So right now I'll defer to my mental health coordinator, Ms. Sarah Ainge.
Thank you, Ms. Ainge.
Where do I start? Or what is my initial question? I apologize.
Yeah, we wanted to see if we can get some questions answered first of all.
So, okay. So all staff on campuses are youth mental health first aid trained, or well, 97% of our staff within the district are youth mental health first aid trained. So for the most part, just about everybody on a school campus is trained to recognize the warning signs and symptoms of students possibly in crisis or maybe experiencing some sort of mental health issue. And so that the list that Mr. Fagan provided would be some of those extra support staff along with teachers, administrators, the school counselor, school psychologist. They are all included on here, and the teachers are in addition to. The main objective of our staff being youth mental health first aid trained is that they know the signs and symptoms to get them to the appropriate help. That's really the main thing. And one of the neat things about our district and our trainers are all either school counselors, school psychologists, mental health specialists, I believe we have an administrator that's a part of it. So it's all people that serve in that capacity to help a student when an issue arises. Parent contact is made upon a student being talked to. If a student is crisis, obviously our first line of defense is to de-escalate that student and get them to a place where we can kind of, well, de-escalate the student, make parent contact, and make sure that all interested parties and parents are aware of what is going on with the student.
Thank you. Ms. Rosario, you pulled it, so we'll start with you.
Yes, did you have anything else? I feel like we kind of cut you off.
No, I'm good.
Oh, you're good? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So let me just go straight into my specific questions here. Question about charter schools. I understand that before this was presented to us, charter schools did not yet submit their information or their report. Is that correct still?
It was due to a portal issue, and that was statewide.
So we haven't received charter school information?
How much of it do we have now?
So I have been in contact with all of them very closely. I know they probably are really tired of me at this point. They've been wonderful and so patient with us. It's actually been on the DOE end, has been the issue. They just got access last Wednesday afternoon. So in order for them to upload their plan into the portal, they also need their board approval as well, their governing board, before we can bring it to you. So that has been the holdup. So my apologies on that. The DOE has said they are not, it's state statute, the August 1st deadline, but we have to work in accordance with what's been given as far as the glitch in the system on the DOE end.
So I totally understand that, but on our form, we're indicating that yes, we did review it for compliance, and if we haven't received it, it should be no.
You are correct. I was, the person from the DOE that I spoke with, like my contact, had recommended to go ahead and bring it before you and then make amendment when we get the charter schools all of their information.
But there wouldn't be an amendment because you're still saying yes. So if you say yes now, there's no amendment later when you do get it. The amendment is to indicate no, and then you amend that to say yes. That would be an amendment.
Do we have any of it?
What I was thinking that, the information that was submitted is complete, but I think the additional amendment will be to add those that have not completed it due to a state concern. So it's not local.
Do you have a place to include that? Do you have a space in there to actually articulate that?
We will have to work on that, definitely.
Okay. All right, then I have another question on this. I can't see my pages. I think it's page 4, but I'm sorry. My pages are a little cut off. Maybe 3. 1, 2. The item is, it states assisting a mental health services provider or a behavioral health provider as described. And then it says INS, Florida Statute 1006.041. So it just begins with assisting a mental health services provider or a behavioral health provider. Do you see that?
It's on page 4.
I do, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
thought you were looking for it.
I'm reading through, it says on here, school board policy or procedure has been established for, and then it's assisting mental health services provider, behavioral health services provider. So we do have our mental health, our manual, our crisis manual, and that would, I believe, speak to our series of events as far as de-escalation goes and when to involve a SRO or SRD. And then also when we confer with, or when we call in mobile crisis.
So what is the
Before-
question? What is the question for this? Because I don't see the question.
We're just assuring the state that we have processes and procedures in place.
Okay, so the question that I have is,
sorry.
what is a provider? When I hear provider, I hear medical doctor. I hear psychologist, psychiatrist.
So we have licensed mental health counselors on our staff. We also have school psychologists on our staff. I believe that would be our mental health services providers. We can also call in the mobile crisis unit, which is through New Horizons, and they can come in. That is with parent consent. They will not agree to come.
But that's not included here. None of that is included here, and I think when we say provider, it sounds like a medical doctor, you know, someone who has who's providing therapy, not who's providing a service. So we don't provide therapy, we provide a service. So that's my concern there.
So this was written by the DOE and given to us by the DOE, and they have an agreement with, New Horizons receives state funding to provide us with a crisis response team, a mobile response team. So that would be my answer to that.
But New Horizons is not in this. New Horizons is not included in this answer.
Can I make a comment, just for clarification?
So I'm making some observations here in terms of what seemed to be missing, as far as my understanding. I'm going to go to the evidence-based program. I'm just going to go to the Substance Awareness Center, evidence-based program, SAC, Tier 2. I think I'm on page 6, sorry. So 1, 2, 3, on the fourth line down, it reads, Substance Awareness Center, SAC, will provide 4 therapists to the middle school within SDIRC to support identifiable students on a Tier 2 level in prevention and education. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, so that's a continuing agreement we have with them that has been going on. I can at least speak for last school year. They provide therapists to help us just provide another level of support. That's a MOU we have with the Substance Abuse Council for them to help support our students in the Tier 2 and could be in the Tier 3 level, but maybe more of those, some of our more Tier 2 things with problem solving, organization. There are behavior things. We could get into substance abuse if needed.
That's fine.
So
therapists providing therapy, providing a medical service?
One-on-one, yes.
Without the parent's permission?
No, everything has to go through parent. Everything is parent consent.
And then it says this is an evidence-based program. What is the evidence?
So they use a program called BOTVIN.
I'm sorry?
BOTVIN, BOTVIN.
Okay. And then my last one is cognitive behavior therapy. Again, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sixth line down, it reads, implemented by a licensed mental health staff assigned to their schools. The school and staff will identify students that need direct clinical services. Again, clinical to me is medical services. We do not provide medical or clinical services. That is not our area. We provide educational services. We are not supposed to provide therapy. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So with parent consent, we are able to provide those services through our mental health specialists, which hold their licensed mental health clinicians, providers. So that would be, this is definitely not for the masses necessarily. This is a more direct, probably a Tier 3 type situation, could be Tier 2. but the students who do need those direct supports within the school, and maybe there is an issue to where they don't have transportation, or there's another family situation going on in which the parent would consent for the student to be seen by one of our therapists on campus.
So this has tier 2 and tier 3. It's not just tier 3. So you have both tier 2 and tier 3 there.
It could, honestly, it could serve both. For the most part, I would say it more than serves tier 3, but we also have those tier 2 students if parents request.
That the parents are actually requesting it?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying.
Okay, we're going to go to the next board member, and then Ms. Berenberg, then myself, and then we'll wrap it up if Ms. Rosario has more, or Mr. Barefoot or Dr. Pasca.
Sure. Going back to page 4, where she talked about the term services provider, I have no problem with that term because a provider is a blanket word for a choice of different situations. And again, parents are agreeing to do this, right? So we're not inserting ourselves between the parent and the provider. We're allowing the parent to choose and switch if they need to, providers.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
I'm thinking back at the days you're teaching. Let's say a teacher, let's say a custodian recognizes someone with an issue. So what is the plan then at that school? Where do they each have those point people to go to? Let's say you're at a middle school. Do you go to the counselor just so the parent knows? And obviously it's parent approval if we go outside. So can you just explain that to the community?
Yes, thank you. So for the most part, we want to empower like our school staff, the school counselors to take that.
Excuse me. Could they take the talking outside? Thank you.
Sorry, couldn't hear. Sorry, go ahead,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
We want to empower the school counselors to really take the lead on that and be the point person on their campus. So if a staff member recognizes an issue, the school counselor would be the one, the first kind of baseline of defense. And our school counselors are certified through the Department of Education, very well trained to deal with students and whatever issue may arise. And then at that point, if they see that there may be if further discussion is needed, perhaps there is a discussion with a parent. There is a discussion with a parent on the front end. Sorry, I should have said that immediately. But there's a discussion from the front end with the parent. And as they continue conversation, if the parent requests, or possibly maybe the student is coming down very frequently, there may be further conversation regarding a higher level of support.
I was pretty sure it was guidance, but I wasn't 100% sure. Dr. Pasca?
Yeah. How many different individual students did you guys care for with mental health issues, approximately?
So I wish I don't have that number right in front of me. I could get it for you. So to close out our thank you, Dr. Lewis, to close out the 22-23 school year, we served about 2,000 students approximately through our mental health specialist, and that received some type of service. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We had 2,000. We all document very well and throughout Focus, and so we can track that. So my apologies, I don't have those numbers with me this evening, but we had 2,000, not students, what's my right word? I'm sorry.
Delivery of services.
Thank you.
So those are encounters. Those are not individuals.
Right.
How many individuals?
Our mental health therapists, they're all, I was actually working on that
No,
earlier.
how many patients did we see? Like individual patients?
Right, so I was trying, depending on their school, some of them serve a high school 2 days a week, some of them serve a middle school 1 day a week, some of them are an elementary school half a day a week. It just kind of depends. A full caseload for them per day would be 8 students per day.
I'm kind of curious in a year, how much, if we look at your guys' group as a practice, how many different patients you saw. So if you guys, if you don't have that available, if you could send that to us, I'd appreciate that.
You will be impressed.
Okay.
They're good.
20 to 24 that impresses me in a day. And then another question I had is, can you give us examples of the different things that you guys are treating there?
Are you,
When you say treating, are you talking
Providing counseling for, or
like, okay,
CBT
specific?
or various issues.
Okay.
What mental health issues are you guys seeing?
So I would say it's very broad. Anxiety issues, depression, a lot of crisis situations in which students are work with a support staff, either a school counselor, a licensed mental health provider, or a school psychologist to do the Columbia, the risk assessment. I would say those are our main ones.
So other than anxiety and depression and crisis, is there anything else you see regularly?
You pretty much, again, it's vast, and I would prefer if we able to provide
Sure. Yeah,
more
if you
detailed
wanna-
information at a later.
Yeah, you can send me
time.
an email, just try to make it somewhat comprehensive, the different things you're taking care of. I'd be interested to look at that. All right, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, I would ditto that request. I would love to see a more comprehensive view, if that's possible. I know last year I requested where was the data? It was never provided, so this information would be really helpful. I have a question as I look at the team members that are spread throughout our county. This report here, by the way, that's being provided to us is only a part of the whole picture in terms of mental health services. This one here is just the state's plan only and what the state is asking us to report to them, not include, and it's 900,000, I think the total, let me get to the end. I have it here. Grand total, $922,552. But our complete and total comprehensive mental health, wellness and mental health support services to students in the entire district globally, I suppose, is 12.5, almost $12.5 million. So what's being presented today is just a portion of that 12.5 million. So I just wanted to clarify that. Now, within that, of this portion that we're talking about, or rather globally, I should say, what I'm seeing that was provided for us is that we have 7 mental health specialists, 1 mental health case manager, 2 program specialists that provide psychological services, 3 program specialists that provide student services, and then, of course, we have counselors. We have 18 school psychologists, 8 social workers, and then, of course, we also have behavior support technicians, 38 behavior support technicians, which seems excessive. So when we're talking about, when you mention that there are approximately, that are licensed mental health specialists who are the providers, which is not a choice, by the way. The mere definition of provider is a person providing or supplying a service. So that's not an option. It's a person doing this. So when you talk about, I gotta go to my numbers. When you talk about approximately 8 students per day, you mentioned earlier there's approximately 8 students per day that are being seen at the schools. Is that, with whom is that? Because we have all these people providing a service, let's say 8 people who are 8 students a day, randomly.
I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
That only speaks to our mental health team.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
For the mental health team.
Correct.
So when you say mental health team, who is that?
Our mental health specialist.
Just the mental health specialist. So of the 7 people within the $12.5 million budget, only 7 people will see about 8 students per day.
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
that $12 million, and Mr. Fagan can summarize, that is a vast number of individuals providing support to students, whether it's safety, security, whether it's IEP-driven services, whether it's crisis management. So, yes, mental health specialists see about 8 students a day, very prescriptive support aligned, mostly Tier 3 services. But when you look at the comprehensive approach that we take to provide support to students, it is covering the complete gamut of services. So, Mr. Fagan, did you want to cover the individuals that dollar amount actually represents, as you're ping-ponging back and forth?
Well, Dr. Moore, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that wasn't my concern. We can certainly go there, but I wasn't mentioning the 12.5 million in this particular conversation just to highlight that. I was wondering about the services specifically for the approximate 8 students per day.
Mental health specialist.
Mental health specialists. So I just wanted to clarify that those were being seen by mental health specialists, not guidance counselors or somebody else. So when you said the 8 students, that's what I was questioning. But we can certainly pivot and go there unless you have something else to say.
I was just going to speak to that. Those people are paid out of the mental health allocation. So that is speaking of that budget that was brought before you today. The other budget is definitely more comprehensive and embraces more people. As far as direct services provided and the number that we had given, that is through the mental health allocation only.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Fagan next, and then I have a couple. Thank you, Mr. Fagan.
All right, through the chair, we do have a clarifying correction. So the number of school psychologists is 18. That number should be about 10-ish. When I did my counting the number of people, I used all funding sources, and the report I run simply gives me a body count, but I didn't count the FTE that was funded from 2 different funding sources, so I kind of double counted people. So that number should only be about 10. So yes, what this report was supposed to do was be able to show a small indication of the total safety net that we have for all students. So looking at just the people who provide mental health services directly, we came up about 222 people. That gives you a budget of about $10 million, including salaries and benefits. And then you also have all your SROs. All your SROs are also trained to provide that kind of safety net. And one thing missing from this list is, of course, as was discussed, is all your staff at your school-based sites are also trained. So now you have another 1,100, 1,200, 1,400 people. You add up all those dollars, you're now into the $100 million. But basically, every teacher is trained. Every administrator at every school site is trained. So you have a huge safety net that is designed and trained to recognize a child who needs services, and then go over to Ms. Ainge for services after that.
And just a comment, the behavior techs were what we used to call teacher aides, right, Dr. Moore, teacher assistants, with a little bit more defined, which are required by the IEPs.
Right. Through the chair, we added behavior tech, so aligned to ESC services. We do have them in elementary schools as well, providing support to students in the general ed population.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, Dr. Moore, the behavior specialists, they're not TAs.
Behavior techs.
They're not TAs. They're not teacher assistants. They're not in the classroom the way that we know a traditional teacher assistant is.
No,
They assist the entire school building.
But they used to be, and we changed it, so behavior tech is in fact providing behavior tech, and it's not listed or labeled as a teacher assistant, correct?
Okay. Thank you for this update, Mr. Fagan, because this, what you provided, not including all of the teachers on here, really gives us a good visual. I mean, we understand, I'm sure everybody here on the dais understands that every person in a school building is trained or gets the training to provide any services or to be able to acknowledge and see if there is a mental health, issue, if anything, or at least be aware of it. But this actually is a good visual so that we can have, which is what I was intending for us to include in our budget, which we did not have, so I'm glad that we have it now, and I'm glad that we're going to include it within the budget, because it gives us a comprehensive look as to where the monies, or this money, is streamlined specifically for these purposes. What I'm curious about, though, now that I think Dr. Moore mentioned it, or maybe you mentioned it, Mr. Fagan, are student monitors. Those are the hall monitors, right?
To the chair, yes, ma'am.
The hall monitors?
Safety monitor.
So the hall monitors were added last year. When the hall monitors are monitoring the halls, well, first, when are they trained? And then when they're monitoring the halls, if a student is out of place in a bathroom, for example, and they remove the student, they bring the student back to the classroom or to the office, whatever they do, right?
Correct.
What mental health services do they provide? Or is this only counting the training they received?
Through the chair, it's counting the training they received, and just to bring a little bit of light to it, they are trained to distinguish between a typical adolescent behavior versus what could be a troubled behavior. So if you looked at it in terms of these are things that is age appropriate for a student to be displaying, we're fine. But these are signs of a troubled behavior in which you go back to the school counselor and you follow the established process to make sure. If there is a additional service that could be provided, we have constant eyes on our students to evaluate the behaviors, whether it be in the cafeteria, whether it be at the change of class, whether it's coming in the school. Those will be all places in which you would see security monitors.
And lastly, can you define the difference between, or clarify for us the difference between a security monitor and a student monitor?
Through the chair, and in my mind, they're the same unless Mr. Bass has something to shift.
Yes, sir. Through the chair, security monitors are our security staff on campuses. Student monitors, if you have like after-school program and things like that, that's where a student monitor would come in. A lot of times it'll be help with tutoring in the afternoon, but it's the student staff that we hire outside their school day.
And each security monitor is trained by our safety specialists each year.
So the security monitors are really who I was referring to
Yes.
instead of the student monitors in the original question.
Correct.
Is there a way that we can distinguish between them and call the student monitors something else other than monitors? Just for the sake of understanding that they're very different?
Sure.
You want to think about that?
We can think about that.
We can think about that.
Because I literally asked a question that did not pertain to student monitors. It should have pertained to security monitors. But, so thank you for that.
All right, any other, Mr. Seymour?
Yes, I did receive some information early on. This is from Ms. Shannon Bass, and based on Dr. Posca's questions of how many students are seen each year. And to let you know, from 21-22, there was a 169% increase in the students being seen by those individuals dealing with mental health. Also, the follow-ups decreased by 89%, if I'm not mistaken. In addition to that, some of the concerns is an assessment screening, coaching, consultation, coordination of care, crisis, external referrals, family sessions, group, individual, internal referrals, parent, guardians, training, and resources provided to families. So quite a few. The largest number was the individual responses by the mental health coordinators, which was a total number of 3,146 in 22-23 versus 1,168 in 21-22. And we can provide this.
Thank you, go ahead.
Can you
Ms.
email
Rosario,
that
go
to
ahead.
us?
Yes,
Thanks.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Seymour. To put it in perspective, I have about 4,000 encounters in a year.
Okay.
Just
You'll
to put
get
it
in
in
a few
perspective.
minutes. Thank you.
All right, any more discussion on the mental health allocation plan? Okay, so I would need a motion to approval of the 23-24 mental health allocation plan.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Berenborg
Second.
motions, Dr. Posca second. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you, Ms. Rosario, and board members.
Way to go, Ms. Ainge, first time.
Thank you, we didn't. It's hard when you don't have all the information, okay. All right, 11C was our next item that was pulled, and that was homeschool dual enrollment articulation agreement with the Treasure Coast Technical College. Mr. Marsh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just once again, through the chair, I would like to thank Ms. Rosario for pulling this item. Good night.
Thank you. Dr. Moore, your consent item report and recommendation, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item, the final item for the evening, is an agreement with ourselves. This is an agreement with the Treasure Coast Technical College, which we own and operate for our students to take dual enrollment courses at the Technical College. Earlier today during workshop, it was discussed that statute clearly says that students grades 6 through 12 can participate in dual enrollment, but it also, in that same statute, allows us to establish any additional requirements for participation in a process for determining eligibility, for monitoring the progress and participation for students within industry certification courses. The individuals or the organizations that issue the certificates require students to be within 1 year of graduation. That there creates the requirement for students to participate in these courses in their 11th or 12th grade year. So I don't know if that clarifies the conversation that was pending from workshop. So I'll allow the item to be presented and ask any questions that may be posed.
All right, so we'll need a motion and a second for discussion of this item. Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Posca. All right, discussion. Ms. Rosario, you pulled that, so you're up first.
Yeah, I just, I gotta pull it up. I can't find it now. Give me 1 second, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Can't find it now. So I'll talk from memory.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because I know earlier, Ms. Shields indicated that not all of the programs would have that requirement because of ending in some kind of licensure or certification. So I wanted to make sure that we incorporate the language that says other grades 9 through 10 may be acceptable into some programs pending requirements or pending something, because what we're looking at now, we have nursing, welding. I know some of those have strict requirements in terms of licensure and certification, but would that be the same for culinary arts coming up? And would that be the same for future courses, for future programs in TCTC? TCTC does not only do or provide nursing and welding. We have other programs there, obviously. So my concern is limiting the access. If a student wanted to get, start in 9th grade, just to be able to have that access available to them, if, of course, it doesn't conflict with the requirements of the licensure, the organization providing the licensure.
Okay.
So
go ahead, Dr. Moore. I'm sorry.
just to immediately respond, and Ms. Shields can add on it. As you know, we reorganized some of the support services to build enrollment. And as we grow programs, we need to grow the opportunity to offer courses. So as we're at capacity, we need to provide opportunities to those students who are in 11th and 12th grade who immediately will benefit going into the field of work. So although there may be a program or two that doesn't necessarily have a requirement in place for a 1 year out to graduate, we simply do not have the space or availability to offer it. And I would not want to put an 11th or 12th grader in a situation where we're saying no to you because you're going to graduate next year and go into the world of work versus someone who may be in 9th or 10th grade. So point taken, and as Ms. Shields lives up to what she sold me and grows the program, I think this is something that we should be able to look at because it would be a great problem to have in the future.
Okay, Ms. Shields?
Good evening, through the chair. Yes, absolutely. To Dr. Moore's point, as we grow our programs, we will continue to look at those industry certifications that will allow students who are more than a year out from graduation to sit for those exams. As of right now, several of our certification exams require them to be within a year of graduation. As culinary arts comes on board, that is certainly one that we will look at. We want to make sure that all of our industry certification exams are on the master credential list so that they meet labor and market alignment.
No, I think that's very important. So let's say culinary, when is culinary dated to open?
January 2024.
Okay, so January 2024, if there are any students that fall into the category who are not 10 and 11th and 12th graders and are interested in, applying for that position, obviously, we're going to give it to the, those who are nearing graduation in terms of priority of seating. But what would then happen? I mean, if that student is eligible and can sit, but the contract says no, then what?
So the culinary arts program is a 1,300-hour program, so I don't believe we would have anybody graduating by the end of next school year. So we would revisit the articulation agreement and include culinary arts.
So why not
For next
include
year.
what I'm asking, which is in the case of a student who is in 9th and 10th grade, where it doesn't conflict with any other eligibility or requirements, may be able to, or could be able, or,
So-
may be
Through the-
acceptable.
So,
You're recognized, Dr. Moore, go.
thank you, Madam Chair. Our students begin school August 10th. They take annual courses, so 100% of our students will be participating in annual courses over the course of the year. As we open the program in culinary in January, it will only be the adult ed students participating, and then we'll be marketing and advertising it for participation going into the upcoming school year. And the same holds true. We will fill it to capacity on day one this time next year with 11th and 12th graders who want to take advantage of that opportunity to enter right into that hospitality world. So even though we're drastically revising and creating a new space, we anticipate through dual enrollment and adult students for it to be at capacity as soon as it comes online.
Yeah,
Okay, Ms. Rosario, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm excited for the program. I really can't wait for it to start. It's been a long time coming, so I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of excitement behind it. I think it's fantastic. I just don't want us to limit access when access could be due. I just want everyone to be able to have the opportunity if and when possible, especially when the law says that obviously 6 through 12. But I understand all the other nuances behind it.
But just a level of validation to the board, if we are seeing that we are not at full capacity, then we would immediately revisit the item. But I am
Revisit the contract?
revisit the contract. I know, based on the space and based on the redesign of the system to continue to feed and grow the programs, we want to create that problem for ourselves, which would be 2 or 3 years out.
Okay, any other, Ms. Berenborg?
Sure, yeah. I'm with you. I don't want to discourage the Doogie Housers of the world. However, I also know that you have adult ed people mixed in with juniors and seniors. And so that leads a whole new interesting little thing with putting in 9th graders and 10th graders. So I think, a priority list would be appropriate, and then with special consideration, if a 9th grader or 10th grader wants to be considered, that should be allowed if it's, we've gone through all the others first. But yeah, I don't want to discourage anyone, but I also feel like if you have limited seating, then we need to go on, who needs that for their career to go forward.
Right. All right, any other discussion? All right, so we're looking for approval of motion for approval of the 23-24 homeschool dual enrollment articulation agreement with Treasure Coast Technical College. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Ms. Berenborg, motion, a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Barefoot. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 5-0, thank you. All right, the next part is another action agenda item on a public hearing. Public hearing and adoption of Neola policies, volume 23, number 2, and special update. Dr. Moore, have you documented that this public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state statutes?
Through the chair, yes, ma'am.
We now recess the meeting to conduct the public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Dr. Moore, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time?
Mr. Marsh, did you fill out a form?
Yes, sir.
We have one.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh, you may go ahead and speak on the public hearing of the school board policies and special update.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. One of the policies I would like to highlight that falls underneath this is policy 2111, the parent and family involvement in the school program. I just noticed that as of July 20th, I believe, right on the website, it is crystal clear. It discusses the parental rights and responsibilities. I think that's amazing. I'm not sure how many parents out there have clicked, but it goes through like 14 or 15 little neon green. I mean, there's everything on there from parent, join the PTA. I'm not sure why everyone was smiling looking in this direction, but whoever did it, it's a great concept. As a parent, every question is answered. The how to, what's going on?
You were given credit. We appreciate that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Just got a little nervous. I thought someone was coming to get me, or Sergeant Rodriguez or something. So, but for a parent, you know, that means a lot, because I think time after time we keep hearing about parental rights. And to actually have a section where the school district spells out and says, here you go, here's all your rights. Matter of fact, here's some you probably didn't even realize you had. So I appreciate that very much, because as a very involved parent, to see these volunteer opportunities, the collaborating with the community, I mean, there was no stone left unturned. So thank you very much for doing that. And I just want to point out another policy that I personally enjoy, and that's PO 8320, and it discusses the responsibilities of the ultimate public records custodian. That would be our superintendent. And I won't bore you guys with that, because I'm sure everyone's well versed in public records. But thank you. I'm noticing things are getting better. So thank you to the ultimate public records custodian, through the chair, Dr. Moore. And that's it. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. No one else? Okay. The chair concludes that the announced public hearing on the adoption of Volume 23, Number 2 School Board Policies and Special Update of May 22nd, 23 has been conducted pursuant to notice, and that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided to all. The board meeting is reconvened at this time, and I call for a motion for approval of adoption of Volume 23, Number 2 School Board Policies and Special Update as of May 22nd, 23. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And Ms. Berenborg motion, seconded by Dr. Posca. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. 5-0. Carries 5-0. Now we go into discussion items, and we had one from Ms. Berenborg on TAN, Tax Anticipation Notice.
Yes, tax anticipation notice. Again, this year, we're looking at going, oh, I'm sorry, you wanted to speak to the item.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Marsh, I'm sorry. The discussion item is correct.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I want to thank the vice chair for bringing this up. The tax anticipation notice. As we know, we don't get the tax money until November. So we need the money for operations until that tax money comes in. And I will allow the vice chair to continue on, but thank you very much for bringing this item up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Ms. Berenborg?
Yeah, we had a presentation on this morning, and there was a slide, I believe it was slide number 6, that looked like something from the Depression era, where you have a graph, and it's a line graph, and then the rise and then the fall drastically. Looks like, 1929. What is frustrating is this happens all the time. It's every year. And some years we have money that we can throw around, and Mr. Pagan's team is really great at figuring out where to, rob from one to pay the other. However, this is a continuous problem. I brought up this afternoon, and I have talked about this in the past, but I think this year we need to really do something about it. So I'd like to have discussion about directing the superintendent to work with the school board attorney to create a letter to the 6 other districts that are really affected by this cash flow deficit due to the required local effort funding and the way that our state does it, so that districts that are property rich, that are giving lots of tax money to the state, are winding up having to even be penalized for doing so and having to cost us even more money. So, you know, I'm asking that we agree to have them put together a letter, and then bring this letter back to us at the next board meeting. And the reason why I have the urgency for this is because the idea is to get this group together quickly so that we can send it out to our legislators, which are starting their fall committees in September. And so if we want to really move on this and get some action on it and try to get it passed next year of some sort of help for this, we need to start now.
Thank you. Board members, any comment?
I think that's a fine idea. No, I think it's a good idea, and I think we should move forward with it.
I agree, this isn't an action item, but I think we can reach consensus that we could at least have Dr. Moore take a look at this and get it rolling.
It's a discussion item, not an action item.
Correct, I said, yeah, this is a discussion item, not action, but I think we could reach consensus to get it moving forward, like Dr. Posca said, because I think it's important we go through this every single year. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. We don't go through this every year. We have in the last couple of years, but when we first came in, we didn't have to do it. And there were years prior where it did not happen that way. So it's not every single year. I think some other school districts, though it seems to be consistent, might also have the same response where it's not every single year. It just happens to be in the most recent years, possibly.
Okay, I guess I'm just commenting from years ago, and we had it a lot. So if it's not every single year, that's great, but I think it's something we could look at as far as maybe get some movement on it. Dr. Moore? Any other comments? All righty. Dr. Moore, do you have anything before board member matters?
Just a very, very brief update for the opening of schools. This is the last time the board will convene prior to the opening of schools. We're sitting right now, as of today, at 14 open classroom positions, which is a much better place than we were this time last year. We will continue to interview. We anticipate as teachers prepare to come back to school. As we fill the current 14 opening, we may have a few more opening, but we have plans in place to ensure on day one, every single student is greeted by someone who will be their teacher until we are 100% fully staffed. In terms of facilities and operation, if you drive by the Citrus Bowl, you will see a bunch of green and red on the ground. It looks beautiful. The field is going in. It will definitely be ready for our first game with plenty of time to practice. We have one pending construction item that will be finished, which is the addition at Sebastian Middle School. That's going to come down to the wire, but we'll make sure our teachers have enough time to load those rooms and have that beautiful new space available for our students. So we will be ready for an absolutely outstanding school. We are opening school on August 10th, which is a Thursday and a Friday, which means those are not warm-up days. Those are actual school days, so we need you in. We will begin going through our progress monitoring assessments as soon as we possibly can to collect that information to ensure that we continue to share great results at the end of this upcoming school year.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Mr. Barefoot, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I have nothing to add, Doc.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the parent website, the parent link for the responsibilities. Also on the main page of the website is the parent guide. And so it's a really nice looking new guide that's on our website. I don't know who's actually doing that, uploading it, but if we could link or put the parent guide also on the parents' responsibilities page, that would be a nice pairing together. It's all, instead of being in separate places, it's all in one place there. The other thing that I wanted to mention for parents is that there is, and they may not know, but they may know, moving into the school year, if anybody is going to buy school supplies, there is a back-to-school sales tax exemption up until August 6th. Actually, it begins July 24th. What is today? Oh, today. July 24th until August 6th. So I think that would help parents. And we have coming up, I think we have in the mall, don't we have an opening? Is that, yes? Do you have information? Because I went on the website and I didn't see anything on our website about it.
Yes, so we started pushing out on social media. They just prepared the flyer for us. The
Yeah.
Again, it's on the 29th. It's open to the entire community, the Indian River Mall Vendor Fest, and all of our schools will be there with representatives from our schools, our food and nutrition department, transportation, the superintendent's hospitality table, and other vendors will be there that will help families with their back-to-school needs.
Yeah, I think last year there was and I'm gonna say it was the VNA, I'm not sure, offering free medical clearances for students. I'm not sure if that was who it was, but I'm thinking they would do the same thing this year. Do you know?
Yes, I know that. I did see some advertisement about them being out there to, I'm not exactly sure what specific exams that they're doing, but they're doing like back-to-school checkups and whatnot.
Yeah, so they do the sports forms. I think they're doing the sports
Possibly.
forms. Yeah. So anyway, I just think that that's a wonderful opportunity. Again, that's Saturday, the 29th, at the mall from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. Did I say that right?
We will be there until 2.
But the entire event is from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m.?
That is correct. I will
Correct.
double check that and let you know just
Okay.
1 second.
Alrighty, so I'm excited about that. I'm glad we are moving away from summer, which is sad. Super, super fast. It went super fast, but looking forward to the new year. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about a lot of things coming. So I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Ms. Barrenborg?
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of traveling. As a matter of fact, Treasure Coast Council Local Governments have their annual barbecue in July. I couldn't attend. I begged and begged and begged because I can't ask you guys, well, I could, I guess, through email, but I asked if we could get somebody to go. Unfortunately, no one could go to represent me because it was in Okeechobee, I guess. I don't know why, but hopefully at the next meeting I can report back as to what they had, a cowboy poet, I guess, speak. The other thing is zoning planning is this week, so I'll be attending that. And, you know, when school starts on a Thursday and a Friday, a lot of people are like, what? That's crazy. It's great. Because that's, you know, the first couple of days that all the teacher is doing is pretty much repeating themselves over and over again for rules and, you know, procedures and kids getting to say hi to each other, haven't seen each other in a while. So it's really great, even though, yes, there is instruction and yes, there are academic standards that are being taught. It's really great because on Monday, you've kind of gotten all that out of the way and you're good to go. And you're not going through a whole week of that. So I think it's great that we're starting on Thursday.
Thank you, Dr. Plaska. Good. I attended the homeschool forum with Heather Holden and the district team. It's actually a great event where they welcomed our homeschool students to our activities. Dodgertown had a great school supply drive on Saturday. I was there maybe the first hour. Many parents came and they had their backpacks and school supplies already through many donations in the community. Engage, I went there when the principals and assistant principals were working last week, as Dr. Moore said, and they're just not looking at, okay, we need to do this, but they are planning their first faculty meeting or what they need to do. So it's really good as far as reality. Again, Mr. Fagan and your team, thank you for getting that budget information ready. Obviously, we had our 3 meetings with you and then our individual meetings, and all of my questions were answered. Make sure you look at school websites for upcoming dates, you know, those open house dates, homecoming, all that is on there. So make sure that you take a look at your own schools. And Downtown Friday, this Friday, right, Dr. Moore? And we'll be looking at that for welcoming everybody.
Yeah, through the chair, we're going to have everyone you see in front of you except for Ms. Passeur, who'll be on vacation. We'll all be there welcoming any question you may have. You're allowed to go on vacation, so have a wonderful time. Any questions you may have regarding any schools, I will challenge you to come and ask. We will have the answer.
Thank you. I attended the Economic Development Council last week and had a presentation by Hope for Families. Again, great support for our community. Welcome to our new employees and teachers. Is Teachers Wednesday, Dr. Moore, where they're coming to Storm Grove?
It's going to be at Storm Grove. It is 8 o'clock on Wednesday is when we kick it off. So I'll have the opportunity to greet them Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock.
As Ms. Rosario, Saturday at the mall will be great, and I went there last year, it was great. And then we have a PTSA administrative meeting.
I think that is tomorrow between 1 and 3 here.
What we're doing, very exciting. We have the principals, the administrative assistant, the secretary, as well as the PTA president for each school coming together, really focusing in on connecting and engaging parents and planning out their years of activities and getting support from the district in order to ensure that we start off on the right track. So that's going to be tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
And one final thing, I got my text on the mandatory open enrollment, which I appreciate, August 1st through the 22nd. I mean, that's how our families get their information, the texts, social media, but yep, summer's coming to a close. So anyone else for anything? All right, thank you very much. We will adjourn the meeting at 8:25. Have a good evening.